Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to our August whatever the date is, 7th, I guess, Nash County Commissioners meeting. And it's customary for us to begin our meeting with a prayer and pledge allegiance to the flag. I'll ask Ms. Wells to join us, and you're welcome to stand and join us if you like, or use it for your own moment of silence for your prayer of choice. Ms. Wells?
Let us pray. Our Father, today is the day that you've made, and let us rejoice. God, we thank you for the little rain that we've had. We need it, Lord, to refresh the earth. God, we just thank you so much for being with us and giving us things, Lord, that we don't even deserve. But be with us as we go through this meeting. And may we remember we represent all of Nash County and not just a few. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Would you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioners, you have two sets of minutes from our July the 10th meeting and our July the 24th meeting. Entertain a motion for approval of those together or any corrections on either one of them at this time.
Make a motion to approve together.
Together. Motion by Ms. Wells. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Combs. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we have a public comment section in our agenda that allows any member of the public to speak on any item they wish that is not otherwise covered on the agenda. We do have a sign-up sheet out front prior to the meeting. At this time, we did not have anyone to sign up. Is there anyone that failed to recognize there was a sign-up sheet that wished to speak to the commissioner this morning on an item not covered on the agenda? Seeing none, I appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing on rezoning, and I would ask Ms. Nixon to inform us of what she has here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This morning, the first public hearing that we have is a petition submitted by Teresa Hopkins on behalf of South Pacific LLC, and they are the property owner. This is to rezone 2.41 acres located in the northeast corner, the intersection of Highway 97 and Brantley Road. This is the property outlined here in red. This would be a rezoning from A1 agricultural to RC rural commercial. The subject site does include a dilapidated store, which is located here at the front. This is a single-family home, some additional buildings, outbuildings, and 3 manufactured homes, Class B, that are on the property. The immediate intention, and when the applicant came to us, one of the objectives was to be able to subdivide and sell separately from the main property, at least these back two of the manufactured homes, or possibly the third was a discussion. But the immediate objective is would be to subdivide the property and retain the frontage piece. However, the request, and the reason for doing that is that of including that rear portion would be that the minimum lot requirements in the commercial district are smaller than in the existing residential, in the existing A1, and so that would create the ability to cut some of those manufactured homes off and sell them separately and still retain the commercially zoned, still retain the property at the front. It is a general rezoning request, which means that if it's approved, there are not conditions on it. It means that if it's approved, then the property owner would be allowed to develop, of course, anything that's listed in the permitted uses in the chart, and I believe that you have a table of permitted uses in your package for the RC district. Future development of the site may trigger an incompatible land use buffer since this would then be commercial and the adjoining properties would be developed as residential. Let's see, the property is located in the Neuse River Basin. It is not in a regulated floodplain or a watershed protection overlay. We did not identify any riparian buffers that affected the property, so that part of it is pretty straightforward. Consistency with the land development plan. Oh, sorry about that. I forgot to put the zoning map up. This is the zoning map in the area. You can see that it's green. The green color represents that A1. However, you can see directly across, diagonally across, there's an existing RC commercial, also not a conditional use property. And so the request basically would be to extend this rural commercial to the opposite corner. In terms of consistency with the land development plan, the land development plan for this parcel shows the properties, and this is, again, the subject property in red. The land development plan designates the subject tract as part of this rural commercial node that's shown in red on your screen. Of course, rural commercial areas are designated at key road intersections within the rural growth and suburban growth areas, and they tend to reflect either where the plan anticipated traffic at those intersections to warrant some rural neighborhood services, or where there were some existing services there already that were non-residential, and in order to recognize those non-residential locations. The rezoning request is determined to be, or is considered to be consistent with the plan because the area is in a designated RC zone according to the, in a rural commercial designated area according to the plan. And so it would allow development of that limited non-residential and commercial services. In terms of spot zoning, rezoning is not considered to be spot zoning, again, because it would be an extension of this existing RC commercial, and it's also the more of a transition of this intersection toward the rural commercial which was envisioned in the plan. The TRC unanimously recommended approval of this request when they reviewed it on June the 29th. The planning board recommendation from their meeting on July the 17th was also unanimously for consistency statement A, followed by a unanimous recommendation for approval. Just for your information, this is sort of coming out a little bit more, just gives you a little bit more view of what the development in the area looks like. In this case, the subject property is here at this corner. And with that, I'll take any questions from the board if you have any. The applicants are here in the audience.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nixon. Any questions from the commissioners at this time? I just had one, Nancy. When we go to from the 40,000 to the 6,000 and the 100 feet to the 60 feet, how does that play in relationship with the health department requirements? Because I know we must be on septic tank at this location.
It is.
Can you
And
explain
that's
that to us?
the way that the ordinance works is that all of those are minimum subdivision or minimum lot requirements. So in the majority of the county, you're always going to have enough on your land to have the septic tank provision, septic system provisions for the number of units that you have. So even if the ordinance would allow a 6,000 square foot lot, you're going to need more than that in order to accommodate septic. In this particular case, the septic already exists. These are existing units. And so it would likely be a combination of land, and then if the septic system is partially on the remainder tract, there may be some easements. But in this case, that septic area is already defined.
Okay.
But that would be a governing factor in anything, even if the
Sure.
lot size was very small.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Nixon. I'd
Yes, sir.
entertain a motion at this time to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Outlaw, second by Mr. Bellfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now in public hearing on this rezoning matter. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to speak for or against this particular item, we would like for you to come forward now and do that, and state your name and address when you come to the podium. Morning, ma'am.
My name is Deidre McPherson. I live at 513 South 5th Street in Smithfield, North Carolina, but I own the property directly across from the North Two Trailers. That was my mom's home, and where I intend on having a home eventually for myself. I'm opposed to the property rezoning. I missed the planning board meeting because I didn't get notification of it. I spoke with the planning board member over the phone a few days ago and received an email on some information. My concern is, a year or two ago, they came to the commissioners and requested that same area just a little bit further north to be having for soccer fields and athletic fields, and after an entire long process, it was denied. I think this is going to be one of these circumstances where they're going to use that, because that athletic fields is one of the RC allowable type stuff. I think they're going to push to extend it further from here on out if they get this one little area approved for it. And I hate to see a lot of the residential changes, because I'm planning on building a home eventually. I could see them having more homes or trailer parks added, or there's a whole big difference between having a small country store versus like a Sheetz or larger type, items built that the RC zoning would allow for. So I'm just opposed to it because of personal for myself and my children, and I don't know what the other people, they said they had some people show up at the planning board to speak against it, but I know it was approved, but I am opposed to it.
Okay. Did you get her name, Ms. Clerk? Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? All right. Anyone else wish to speak for or against this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Outlaw, second by Ms. Barnes. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Mr. Belfield, you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask Nancy, is there any restrictions with this zoning?
No, sir, this
as
is,
to
I'm sorry, go ahead.
as to what can be put there and can't be put there? I've noticed reading a variety of things, but is any restriction on this particular one?
No, sir, then by them, the application being for a general rezoning, it would allow anything that the commissioner,
That's
that the,
listed in the plan.
and because it's in the plan for a commercial node, and it would be allowed anything that was on that list.
Any other questions? Ms. Nixon, did we pick up anything during the process that the idea of the soccer field may be an item under consideration, or am I allowed to ask you that question?
You certainly can ask the question. It was not brought up at all at the time. It was not brought up during the discussions at all. And the, hold on one second. Certainly with this property, the property that was looked at previously for the soccer field, I believe was this area in this lot here, which actually is predominantly outside of where that rural commercial area is. And so that would be a little bit different as a rezoning request. That in order to do something similar on that piece of property, it would need to come back to the board for an extension and a rezoning. And it would not, in that case, it would be an extension beyond what the land development plan shows as a node at the intersection for rural commercial. But certainly it would be within the commissioner's ability to rezone that if they thought it was clear, but it would not be as clearly supported by the land development plan as the current request is.
Does the staff have any concern about this statement of lack of notification, or is it in a different property owner's name, or
I'm
and
actually,
a yes or no answer is fine?
I was not aware that that was, I missed that conversation with a staff member. I don't think it was with me.
Okay.
I don't recall, but I wasn't aware that happened. We did do all the mailings and sent them out, so evidently it was something in the Postal Service that delayed receipt of that. I don't think we've received one back. The only thing we've received back recently has been something related to the hazard mitigation program in the office.
Okay. And if there was indeed some opposition to at the planning board to it, what was it along the line of? Do we recall?
Position of the planning board. I think it's a concern for, just a concern for general change of the character in the neighborhood and what could be allowed in the range of uses.
Okay.
That's in that list.
Okay, thank you. Pleasure of the board? We
Mr.
know,
Chair, I move the request.
well, what I need, Mr. Belfield, is a motion to approve a consistency statement first.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Either A or B, and it sounded like you were headed towards A.
Yes, right.
So you make a
Request.
motion to approve consistency statement A as written in our agenda?
Right.
Okay, I have a motion on consistency statement A. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Ms. Richardson. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. I now need a motion for rezoning from A1 to RC Rural Commercial.
I move that request too.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Belfield for rezoning from A1 to RC. Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Second by Ms. Wells. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to it? Motion carries as well. Thank you, ma'am. Next item, if you want to stay with us, Ms. Nixon,
I will.
is a public hearing, which is a quasi-judicial public hearing. Ms. Nixon, if you'll present it first.
Well, this is a petition by Mamie Joyner Thompson, who's the property owner, and Curtis Thompson to rezone approximately 7.9 acres. This is located on the south side of Autry Road and is from R30, single and two-family residential, to RCCU. So this would be a conditional request. This is the subject property. It's kind of long and narrow. There is water and some environmental conditions, wetlands and such at the rear of the property. But this request was made to rezone 7.9 acres on the south side, and the uses proposed for the property would be automobile towing service, outdoor storage yard, the single-family detached dwelling, and then customary accessory uses related to residential. All three land uses are permitted by right in the RC Rural Commercial Zoning District, but the option of conditional use will trigger additional scrutiny of any uses proposed for the subject property. So a use, because it is a conditional use, is tied to a site plan. Any use that's not shown on the site plan, even if it's a use by right in the district, would have to have additional scrutiny at the time they were going to develop that. The subject lot is partially wooded. You can see there are some cleared areas and some wooded areas. It does not contain any structures currently. It's adjacent to Hunter's Lane. You can see some residential properties in this area. Hunter's Lane, it comes right down along this property line and serves these residential properties that don't front on Autry Road, and also there's some subdivided lots that are not developed in this area. This one serves as a site plan, and this shows you the extent of that, where Hunter's Lane path comes in. Let's see, the southern end, as I mentioned, of the property, it does include areas located in the floodplain, as well as potential for wetland and marsh riparian buffer areas. The site is subject to a built-upon area restriction for non-residential uses within the watershed protection overlay districts, and development is also subject to the TARPAM stormwater requirements and nutrient restrictions. On the site plan, you can see that the site plan proposes a fence around the storage yard, which is anticipated to be a maximum of 1.02 acres. We actually anticipate that when the stormwater regulations are calculated, that area would actually shrink up and be smaller than that. But we don't know, at least the area that could be gravelled could do that. But the request is to reserve this 1.02 acre area here. This is the 45-foot wide access easement, which is Hunter's Lane. There is not a proposed access from Hunter's Lane to this towing storage yard. The applicant has proposed a separate driveway in order to keep the activity more separated from the residential areas. So that would come down the easternmost side of the property to the storage yard. It also shows let's say, no buildings or outdoor lighting is indicated on the site plan, so that there would not be permanent employees actually stationed at the site. It would be used to take basically overflow storage cars from a towing operation where they don't have space to store them at their other commercial location. They would bring those here for longer term storage. And the site plan does depict a 25-foot wide buffer yard on both the east and the western sides of the fenced area of the storage yard. And those would have to satisfy either the incompatible land use vegetative screening requirements or an alternative that was suitable under the ordinance. And also another note is that the house that would be allowed, the residence that would be allowed is not shown on the plat, and so that would either need to come back to the board, or the board could put a condition. If you're inclined to approve it, you could put a condition on it saying that the residence could be constructed according to either the RC zoning requirements for a residence, or you could put a condition that says that the house would have to meet the same setbacks and things as the neighboring properties would. So that, but the residence is not currently shown. In terms of consistency with the land development plan, the land development plan does designate the northern portion of the property as suburban growth. Picture, land development plan. This is suburban growth, which is primarily intended for residential, but there are allowances for non-residential uses. And then this rear part of the property is the surface water protection area, which you'll remember is not a regulatory kind of restriction. It's sort of an acknowledgement that there's water, a significant water source back there, and to indicate that some protection might be needed related to drainage and runoff into that water system. The facility, let's see. The specifics about allowing non-residential uses that appear in the land development plan are that it can occur within the suburban growth areas, but should be limited to types of land uses that can meet a couple of tests or that are guided by a couple of tests. So they recommend those locational criteria to be frontage and access to a major state highway or secondary road, location at a major intersection, proximity to similar uses, and spatial separation from non-compatible uses such as existing residential development. The proposed facility can be accommodated without a public water or wastewater. It does not have frontage along or direct, it does have frontage along and direct access to Autry Road. I'm gonna back up. So it does have the access to Autry Road directly, which is a state-maintained secondary road. There is some significant spatial separation from the proposed use area, which is towards the rear, certainly towards these frontage properties along Autry Road. a little less towards these properties that are a little closer, but still there is a separation there. These lots are currently undeveloped, so there's not a residential use there currently. However, let's see. I think we're good. And also, the site is not located at a major intersection, and it's not located in close proximity to other similar non-residential land uses. So it does meet some of those criteria, but others not. In terms of spot zoning, the rezoning request is considered spot zoning. This, as you say, is the zoning map. You can see there's not anything but R30 zoning around it immediately. So spot zoning is a consideration. Spot zoning is allowed in North Carolina if the board determines that it is reasonable for the public use and in the public interest. And so it's not that spot zoning is always not legal, but that the board has to make, would have to make conclusions that it is in the public interest in order to zone that property. So under that, the rezoning request typically should be denied unless the board determines that the impact of the storage yard on the neighboring properties as well as the surrounding community will be mitigated through the designs on the site, the distances away from existing houses, the separation of the driveway, and the fencing and screening. The TRC reviewed this on June the 29th. They recommended denial based on the determination that the request is not consistent with the land development plan and is spot zoning. The planning board on July the 17th, several members of the public attended, spoke in opposition to the request. A motion by board member Chris Sandifer to recommend consistency statement A was not seconded. And then following that, the board recommended consistency statement B, and it was seconded and passed 5-1. And then the planning board unanimously recommended denial based on that consistency statement. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from board members of Ms. Nixon at this time? Mr. Outlaw?
I think you recognize you first.
Yes, sir.
Just a clarification, the petitioner requested rezoning from R30 to RCCU.
Correct.
So you talk about RC. Why are we even talking about that if there was no request for just RC?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's RCCU.
I
It is
understand that,
RCCU.
but here, if I go up here, it says, let me find it. It says all three land uses are permitted by right in the RC.
Oh, yes, I mean, within the when you do when you do a conditional use, you take the list for the general district, which in this case would be RC, from that district, and you select from those the uses that you want to retain for that property. So by saying that all uses are permitted by right in the RC, it means that including those three uses don't require like a special use permit or anything like that in addition to those.
But they could have just requested rezoning from R30 to RC.
They could have if they wanted to include the long list of uses that are allowed in RC.
But they didn't.
But they didn't because there are things that the applicants felt would not fit into this mostly residential community. And they already knew what it was they wanted to do.
Mr. Belfield?
Is this spot zoning, if it happens, is it in the best interest of the public as to what will be put there?
I think that's for the board to determine.
Decide, I think, Mr. Belfield.
The conditions are, the idea is that the spot zoning piece indicates that the request is a bit of an anomaly from what is normally allowed in the surrounding area under the existing zoning. But the purpose of the conditional use zones that we do is to try to mitigate those things that are different and make the use that's requested fit better than the broad range of things that they could have requested in that
The
district.
job of this board members is to decide if we do choose to do a spot zoning, that we've got to say why we did it. Therefore, we would make it in the best interest of the public with that
That's
statement.
exactly why I asked that question. Because I know we would be going against the technical review board
Right.
and the planning board, so.
But we
that's why I
could,
want to
we
know-
can do that if we
I
so
know
choose.
we can, but I want to know if we did, I want to know if it was in the best interest of the public.
I think that's our
Any
job.
public use.
The applicant will
Now,
certainly
you
be.
may not know specifically what they plan to put there, but whatever is in the best interest of the public.
They stated in the application that the intent is to put just the storage yard portion of a towing service that they have elsewhere in Nash County. And that is in a business district, but sometimes they have too many vehicles to be able to store it there. And so they would store those vehicles at this site. Then the vehicles are not being worked on, and there's not a staff person stationed at the site, is what we've said, so.
It seems like spot zoning is the primary concern here. Has there been any discussion with those in opposition to the rezoning to mitigate the circumstances with the spot zoning?
Just through the discussion, from the public hearing information at the planning board and
So I
the
guess
comments.
When the people, I guess we're going to hear from some of those opposed to it today, and I guess I'm interested in, would there be any conditions that the petitioner could accommodate that would make them be more favorable to the request? Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Nixon.
Yes, sir.
I entertain a motion to go into public hearing first.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Barnes, second by Mr. Outlaw. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now in a quasi-judicial public hearing, and if we have anyone present that wishes to speak for or against this item, I'd like for you all to come up at the same time first, because we need to swear you in. So if you're going to speak for or against, if you could just come to the podium at this time and be willing to let us swear you in, your testimony in. And if someone should change their mind later, we can certainly talk about that, but if you know you want to talk or have comments. I'm going to ask our attorney to swear you in.
If each of you could
Just grab a finger.
place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. And when you speak, if you would state your name and your address. Sir,
My name's Curtis.
they
Thompson.
left you standing there, so you go ahead, sir.
Gotcha. My name's Curtis Thompson. My address is 109 Avondale Court. I actually purchased the Thomas Street Shell about 6 months ago, and I'm actually opening a business there where I'm going to be servicing cars, and I need a storage lot. Well, I understand that this hearing is going to be based on facts. It's no speculation, no assumptions, nothing that you think a person might do. It's just what actually goes on. Well, with this site, it's on Ardrey, it'd be off Ardrey Road, but the Hunter's Lane that runs next to it is the way that the people on the other side get to their property. I wouldn't use that at all. I'm willing to follow any guidelines that are imposed. Again, I don't plan to have a water supply. I don't plan to put a building on it. All I need is like the fenced area, and with what they propose is like the 25-foot buffer, so actually nobody could actually see the business from there, because it comes off Ardrey Roads, it goes down a little less than a half a mile, and then there's the storage lot. The other thing was, well, no, again, I plan to follow all the site approvals. At the last board meeting, one of the board members said he may go along with it, providing that I had a 25-foot buffer as far as like shrubs as well as a fence. And then he said that if I had a maximum stay of the vehicles for less than 60 days and a max storage of 20 on the lot at one time, and no vehicle stored higher than 10 feet in height, even being on a trailer, I'm willing to comply with anything that's in the site plan saying how I plan to do business. Like I said, I don't plan to have mechanics there. This is going to be like a Stowe Savage yard, in a sense, because what happens is when I have cars that are worked on where people can't come up with the money to pay for them, or their cars are going to be stowed inside this fence, as well as some cars that are, when they're wrecked, waiting on the insurance companies to pick up. But the faster you move them around, as far as for me, the more profit it is, so.
Sure. Okay. All right.
That's my case.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from board members at this time? All right.
Oh, yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Belfield.
Are you storing Savage?
No, no,
Cars
Savage.
for sale?
Cars, sale cars.
Okay. I know where you're located. You do need some space somewhere. You're crowded with cars. That was the only question.
Mr.
Mr.
Thompson,
Darrell.
you stated that you had purchased the Thomas Street shell, but Mr. Thompson, you have not purchased the Thomas Street shell. You had the highest bid at
Right.
the tax foreclosure, but you've never come forward and paid the money, the rest of the money to purchase it.
Right.
Therefore, I'm gonna file a motion this week to forfeit your deposit and for me to, allow me to resell it. So you need to get with me immediately, or
Okay.
you're gonna lose your deposit. And I've written you 3 letters to that effect.
Okay.
Any other questions from board members? Thank you, sir. Other speakers at this time? It doesn't matter what order you go in. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Ronald Thompson. Curtis Thompson is my brother.
And your address, Mr. Thompson?
1622 Van Buren Avenue, Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Okay.
I'm married to Mamie Joyner Thompson. She's, her mother is the one that owned the property. And we've been paying taxes on that property since 1992. And we never used it for anything. I spent 30 years in the Army. I grew up in Nash County here, and I spent 30 years in the Army, and I retired and live in Fayetteville. But when I talked to my brother about using part of that land to store his cars, I told him that we could do that. We could make that happen for him. October 2016, last year, I came up and looked at the property, and I took some pictures. And here's if I can show this. I'm not sure if you can see that, but
That's
there's
good.
deer stands. There's deer stands right here on the property,
Right.
and here's some deer corn. Here's some deer corn that was right there by the deer stand. I don't know who put the deer stand there, but it's on our property. But I don't have a problem with them continuing to hunt deer or whatever they're hunting out there. All I want is just to let them put a little fence in the area for my brother to store his cars at.
Right.
So that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Next speaker?
My name is James Ricks. My address is 330 Cabot Street. I own the property adjacent to this property on Hunters Lane. I object to it because, first of all, environmental. On the backside of it, as you see here, there's water. I bought the property in 1991. There was only a branch there in 1991. Now the water has expanded because there are beavers in the area, and it's come out almost to the edge of the field. And I don't think that they should be there to mess up the environment. And I need to talk to Mr. Thompson about the hunting part. I gave permission to hunt on my property, which this deer stand was on my property, along with the corn. He probably don't know that, but it was mine. And there are also other animals down there, which I don't think that this would help them out, or actually I think it would harm the animals that's there. There are wild turkeys and beavers and other animals in there, but I don't think it should be there. Any question?
Any questions, Mr. Ricks?
What was your first name, Mr. Ricks?
James Ricks.
James. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ricks. Anyone else wish to speak at this time?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I'm James Hines at 5699 Orchard Road. I'm about 2 properties over, which is probably about 300 yards or so from it. And I just like to say that I cannot see any benefit to the community, but it's to the neighbors, surrounding friends, you know. It's our home. It's where all our neighbors, most of us have lived all our lives. I've actually lived off and on there for 60 years. You know, I helped clear a lot of that land. And, you know, we, as a family, we have gotten close together over the years. People take it, you know, very good care of their properties. And there's a lot of home improvement going on right in the area. There's lots across the street that's for sale by Frank's Home. And just because you don't see something and you find out later that it's there and you're stuck, you know, fine, you put up a wall, nobody see it, and the next person come along, he buy a lot. And then after he built his house, and then he finds out, my God, I didn't know there was a junkyard in the back. And you can say what you please as far as wrecked cars. I used to work on cars. Cars leak. You can put down gravel. It's a low area in the back that runs right. It's a low area, right at the back of where the cleared area, it runs right into this water area. And when it rains, all this water is gonna run off, it's gonna run right into this river, and it's gonna run, well, actually a branch, and it's gonna run right through the whole area. You know, and this, we're looking for problems. I have no problem with someone starting a business, but not like this. You know, it's something that you're gonna live with for the rest of your life. Our kids, the next people that comes along, somebody eventually gonna have to deal with this. If there's a oil leak problem, all of this, environmental problem, 6 months, 5 years, 10 years from now, this person moves away or say, hey, well, I don't need it no more, we have to live there. And we have to deal with this. You know, you pick up and you leave, and then the community have to have the problem. And I would appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much.
Any questions, Mr. Hines, from board members? Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Virginia Battle. I live at 5756 Archery Road, straight across from where he's having his Savage Yard. I have been there since 1969. I was born and raised on that road. My parents, my parents bought land there in the early 60s, and that's where they raised us at. And I don't see our community coming down with what they're trying to bring here across the street from us. I think it's unfair to us. I have kids. My kids has been there in that spot all their life. My daughter's 28, so she's been there for 28 years. I have bought land next door to that. I have had, before I bought the land, I had a gentleman who stored cars out there. I had to get planning and development to come out there to have him to move his vehicles because it was messing with my water. I'm still having water problems right now. I also, well, my husband, he has someone to come out there and they're working with our water. So I think we're gonna have to get a water system, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's out of Greensboro or Goldsboro. I cannot remember which place it is. But I feel like we don't need that in our community. We are trying to build our community. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Any questions, Ms. Battle? Thank you, Ms. Battle. Is there anyone that we didn't swear in that has decided they wish to speak? All right, thank you. I'd entertain a motion for the public hearing to be closed.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Barnes,
Second.
second by Mr. Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear many ayes, but any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Any other questions from board members at this time? Or discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion for a consistency statement A or B. We understand what those two are, I'm sure.
Mr. Chairman, I move for adoption of consistency statement B, based on the fact that it is not entirely consistent with the land development plan and its unreasonable spot zoning.
Second.
I have a motion, consistency statement B, as stated by Mr. Outlaw, including the items in our agenda as well as what he stated. A second by Ms. Barnes. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? I'd now entertain a motion to approve or deny the rezoning request.
Mr. Chairman, I move for denial of the rezoning request.
All right. I have a motion and a second to deny the rezoning request for the reasons stated in our agenda. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Nixon. Next item is a public hearing on the Middlesex Corporate Shell Building financing. Ms. Wood? Good morning.
Good morning. What I'd like to do first is present the recommendation for the financing options that we received for the Shell building. The public hearing is actually, as I published it in the papers, to begin at 10 o'clock or thereafter, and I think we're pretty close.
Well, if that's the case, I can take a 5-minute break if you like. Does that suit board members?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll take a 5-minute break at this time. Excuse me, I should have recognized that.
Okay.
We'll be right back with you. I'll call us back to order. First thing I'd like to do is recognize our state senator, Rick Horner, who joined us just a few minutes ago because I didn't tell him our meeting was at 10 o'clock. I mean at 9 o'clock instead of 10. I apologize for that, Senator. If you would stand up just a minute, I want to thank you on behalf of the board for your work in the Senate this past session, and of course, you're back in every once in a while now, even last week, I think, and we really want to thank you for your help in financing our Miracle Park that we're doing out in the Coopers community. That was kind of unexpected, but you got it to come through, an additional $125,000 to help us with the funding for that, and we greatly thank you for the work on that and everything else you do. Glad to have you here this morning.
Thank you, Robert. I'd like to just briefly say, we've been in session till the end of June, so I couldn't come, but I'm embarrassed. I didn't know you changed your meeting time since the end myself.
Well,
I should have known that.
That's all right. I should have told you. Yeah, I should have told you when you called me and asked me about coming. I apologize. Thank you for being here. Ms. Wood, it is now just a couple of minutes after 10 o'clock. We'll turn it back over.
Okay. To start the process, I want to indicate the recommendation for the financing in regard to the Middlesex Corporate Center Shell Building Project. A request for proposal was sent out July 13th with proposals due on July 27th. Two financial institutions responded with terms for amounts not to exceed $2 million. BB&T had 5-year term with an interest rate of 2.04 annual interest, a 10-year term of 2.41 annual interest, and no prepayment penalty. Southern Bank proposed a 5-year term of 2.79% annual interest rate and a 10-year term of 2.54% annual interest rate. Again, no prepayment penalty. Our recommendation is to accept the financing proposal of the 5-year term with BB&T. The next item that I have as part of the financing would be the public hearing, and the public hearing is on the proposed installment financing agreement to be entered into by the county pursuant to Section 160A20 of the general statutes in a principal amount not to exceed $2 million for the purpose of providing funds together with any other available funds to pay the cost of construction of a shell building. I want to acknowledge that the publication of notice of public hearing was in a newspaper of general circulation in the county as required by Section 160A20G of the general statutes. And the public hearing will be for anyone who wishes to be heard on the advisability of the proposed project or the financing as described.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Wood. Any questions, Ms. Wood, from board members? If not, I'd call for a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Combs.
Second.
Second by Mr. Belfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now in a public hearing concerning a borrowing that the county is considering doing. As Ms. Wood said, we have done the legal things that we need to do in a proper manner and advertise. We received 2 bids, which is a little surprising to me, but yet they are extremely good bids. And if anyone wishes to speak or has questions on this item at this time, please come forward, state your name and your address. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Outlaw, second by Mr. Belfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? At this time, I would entertain any questions from the board about this borrowing. Seeing none, I would just point out that it was an amount not to exceed $2 million. The next item that I'm going to put on the agenda is the Mr. Toast to present the bids that we received. You'll see that they're somewhat less than that, but we're not to exceed, and I think during his presentation, we can consider what we may wish to do with that financing or what amount we may wish to move forward with. But no questions at this time? If not, I'd call for a motion to approve the proposed financing for the Middlesex Shell Building.
I'll make a motion, we approve the proposed finance from BB&T for a 5-year term.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Combs, a second by Ms. Wells. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? The motion carries. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, and that is the adoption of the resolution approving the financing. Is that what?
It
Okay.
included his motion adopting the resolution, correct, Mr. Combs?
Yes, sir.
And Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Not on the agenda, but we also opened bids last week on Thursday, which was a little late to get on the agenda, and I would recognize Mr. Tolson to present those to us at this time. You do have them on your boards or on your table at this time when you got here this morning. You want to find those. Morning, sir.
Good morning, good morning. Thank you. And we did took bids last Thursday. We had a lot of potential bidders. It was a good turnout and got a lot of very competitive prices. We had an original budget of $1.74 million for this project. And as you can see, we had eight potential bidders. A low bid on the base bid for our preferred configuration for the building was $619, excuse me. That is a very good price for the current market, and we feel very pleased to have that sort of a price come back in. The other item in front of you is just a memo requesting the consideration of the bids, and just a general summary of, I don't know that you can read any of that any better when I do that, but typically on projects like this, you have some contingencies, some certain things that will come up during the project, so I'm recommending a 10% contingency. Our low bidder was Smithson Incorporated. They were the $1,369,000 bid, recommending a 10% contingency, which would bring the amount that we would like to award, subject to approval by the LGC financing, the approval of our financing package that you guys just said we were okay to go forward. But it would bring the total contract amount to $1,506,581, which just gives us some room in case we have some things come up during the construction. Still under budget, still under the originally anticipated budget of $1,740,000. So.
Mr. Tolson, I'd like to ask the question of the attorney at this point in time, or maybe the manager. We did receive another bid that one of the alternates was lower. Actually a mistake on that gentleman's bid, which was Danco, and he notified Mike in the proper time that he wished to withdraw that, took the bid. If I'm not mistaken, I think this board has to vote to allow him to withdraw it, according to my past experience. Okay.
What the statute says.
Okay. I think we do, so just for precaution, I think I would first like to ask the board for a motion to allow Danco to withdraw that bid. It was very obvious that well, Mr. Tolson, you explained it rather than myself.
Well, during the reading, there was a pretty large error, difference that looked to be something of a clerical error in the bid being read by Danco, that we read out by Danco. If you'll see, and it's grayed out on here, but on the sheets in front of you, their base bid was in line with the other bids, but then the alternate, when you read it out, tended to be about $700,000 lower, which is not in line with anyone else's bid. It was just a clerical error, I believe, that got entered incorrectly on their bid, and Danco reached out to us right after the bid opening, sent us an email and said we would like to withdraw our bid due to a clerical error. So that was within the time frame. They did it, 2 hours after the bid opening. It's certainly within the time frame allowed to withdraw based on a clerical error.
And these bids did require a bid bond with it of 5%, and what this vote would do would allow him to withdraw it without having to pay that 5% for the benefit of the board, which is very clear in the general statutes that you can do that.
Yes, sir.
So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to allow Danco to withdraw that bid.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Barnes, second by Mr. Outlaw. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion?
Mr. Chair.
Excuse me, sir. Mr. Belfield.
Explain to me why he needed to withdraw if he's not the lowest.
Well, he could, if we chose to award it on the base bid with the 28-foot eve height, which Krista would be mad at me if we did, but we took bids on 2 different eve heights. And we potentially could award it to him because he would indeed be low if we did it that method, if you look under the second column there. And actually, his bid, if you read it per way it was called out, his bid for that particular alternate would only be about $500,000, because that was a deduct, proposal there. So we could potentially award him the 28-foot low eve height for $500,000. Okay. We had a motion to allow the withdrawal and a second. Any more questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to award the contract, subject to LGC approval, to a local company, Smithson and Son, at $1,506,581, which includes a 10%, what's the word?
Contingency.
Contingency, thank you. Sitting here looking at it. Any questions? Entertain a motion to do that. Excuse me one moment.
So moved.
So we would leave that in the budget. Okay. All right, the manager has corrected the way I stated that, which I appreciate him doing that. We're actually awarding the bid to Smithson in the amount of $1,369,619. We would approve the ordinance, a budget ordinance with the contingency in
Yes,
there.
sir.
I misstated that. Thank you for correcting me on that. So, did I get a motion on that? Ms. Wells, I thought I did. Ms. Wells made the motion. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Richardson. Any questions on the motion to award the contract to Smithson and Son in the amount of $1,369,619, subject to LGC approval? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mike, while you're standing there, I want to thank you. You came to work with us a short period of time ago. You didn't have much experience on building construction, I don't think, but you picked up this package, got it done, and I'm not sure how you did it, but you did, and we got great bids and great participation, and some questions during the bidding process, but not any more than normal at all. And I just want to thank you very much for putting it together for us. We are tickled to death with these bids and glad to get it under contract.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda would be item 9, excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Belfield. Medical assistance treatment in the detention center. And I call on Major Dennis Wooten to present this. Good morning, sir. Good morning. Been a long wait for you.
Good morning to the board. The purpose of me coming here today is to introduce you and present to you the medicine-assisted treatment, or MATCH program, that the Sheriff's Office is planning to implement in the jail in the very near future. The reason I have to present it to you, or I don't have to, but the reason I wanted to present it to you guys is that I need all my stakeholders involved in the program. So everybody it's a program with a lot of moving parts, so everybody that's going to be involved at some point along the way needs to know about the program. You being the governing body of Nash County, you're definitely stakeholders in this program. We've also met with the district attorney, met with Judge Sumner. We're going to meet with Trillium on Wednesday. We're going to meet with the defense bar on Wednesday. So we got a lot of meetings coming up and a lot of more people to get involved with. But I'm going to take you from the beginning. I'm going to try to make it short as I can. I'm going to take you from where we started, where we are now, and where we're going. We started about 4 months ago. We were appointed to a board by the governor to get involved with the National Governors Association in developing a plan for expanding opioid abuse treatment to justice-involved populations. We have a detention center, so we're definitely a justice-involved population. When we started out, there's 6 other members of the board. There's a deputy director from Division of Adult Corrections. There's a member from Department of Health and Human Services. District Attorney Ben David from New Hanover and Pender County is on the board. A member from the governor's office, and there's a substance abuse chief with the Department of Adult Corrections who is also on the board, as well as I. In June, we went to Boston, and we learned that there are 7 other states that have been accepted by the National Governors Association to become a part of this plan, being that We are one of those states. We were given all the information we could get. We learned a lot while we were there in Boston. And since then, this committee has been working diligently to get this plan in place. We've been asked by the governor to have plans submitted and ready to go by January of 2018, and that's our hope that we can get that done. The plan involves giving medicine-assisted treatment to opioid-dependent people that are in just as vulnerable populations. Being that we have a jail, we are that. Adult corrections has that. Adult community corrections has that. So we're primarily focused on those that are incarcerated or on probation. The medicine-assisted treatment we have chosen is naltrexone. Naltrexone is a drug that, when given intravenously, or not intravenously, but intramuscular with a shot, lasts 28 days. That drug was invented or came about in the early 80s for alcohol abuse, and was learned more recently in the past few years that it was a good opioid blocker. So in a sense, it blocks the opioid cravings and blocks the opioid effects for 28 days at a time. As we continue work, we've also met with our contracted jail nurses who may be able to administer these shots while they're in jail. Now, we're not going to be in the business of giving people shots their entire incarceration because that's not going to work for us because the cost matters. The company that I'm working with, who I haven't formally agreed to anything upon, has agreed to give us our first injections free, and we would get those injections prior to release. We would identify inmates, patient inmates that are opioid abuse, opioid dependent, and that would benefit from the program. And of course, I've run into a lot of roadblocks along the way of trying to figure out how we're going to pay for the 11 more shots. The program usually lasts about 12 months. So they get their first shot in the jail per se, and then over the next 11 months, we would use personnel from the sheriff's office to ensure these people make it to their next 11 appointments, to get their next 11 shots, in hopes that they can maintain and be free of opioids over that 12-month period. It's also coincided with substance abuse counseling, which is why I've contacted Trillium to hope that once they get outside the jail, Trillium will help us find substance abuse counseling for them over that next 11 months. And over the next 11 months, they would, continue to take their shots, and they would continue to take substance abuse counseling, and we would assess that at the end of 12 months to see the success rate. I can tell you these programs are successful. I met with the sheriff from Barnstable County, Massachusetts, which is Cape Cod area, and he started a program back in 2007. He bases his success rate based on recidivism. He has an 83% success rate. So he's only rearresting about 17% of the people who he puts on the program and who complete the program. In the future, we hope to have that same success rate. A lot of the problems we're going to run into is insurance. We're not a Medicaid expansion state, so it's going to be hard for these offender patients to find insurance on the outside. I've already spoken with Ms. Boone at DSS, who's gladly going to help us and assist us in working with getting Medicaid and doing things to get insurance for these patients as they're outside the walls of the jail. But really and truly, what our goal is at the end of the day is in January is to start giving these naltrexone shots in the jail, and as we release offenders, working with community corrections, because we want our program to marry up to community corrections. When we release these offenders, they come out and they get there and they go along with their probation officer, and they continue, the probation side of it continues working with them and for the next 11 months getting their shots, and that's our goal, and that's why we have local entities and state entities on board to make sure we go from, the local level, once they're sentenced and they're in the state probation, state corrections, it continues there. We are one of 2 pilot counties in the state that will be doing this. New Hanover County will be the other county. Nash County will be one as well. So there will only be 2 counties starting out in January giving this, or starting this MAT program. So we're really looking forward to setting a good example for the rest of the state and hoping to get this program going. And I think that's about it, unless you guys have any questions.
All right, any questions of Major Wooten at this time from board members?
Just a comment. I was at the National County Commissioners Association meeting, and And that was one of the big issues that they're asking counties to go back and develop programs in that area. And while we were there dealing with, CNN had police chief here in Nashville on national television talking about the program, and the sheriff and the police chief working on this. That is becoming a national epidemic that they're saying all counties need to be prepared to deal with. And I think it's a good thing that you're...
We need to be prepared. Obviously, you know, at some point, we may need something. And, you know, I'm not afraid to ask. You know, we never are. Down the road, I think up front right now...
that.
I think up front right now, we're okay in getting started. You know, the governor got the $15.2 million a year grant, CURES grant, that started in July, that runs the next 2 years, and I think we'll be able to tap into that, hopefully. We're going to work on doing that. The company that produces the naltrexone medicine's helping us a whole lot. Those shots aren't cheap. They're $800 to $1,200 a shot. And if you don't have insurance, that's out of pocket. If we can get one of those behind the walls of the facility and then get them out and get their next 11, make sure they get their appointments, make sure they're getting their counseling, I think we've done our due diligence in helping that offender inmate patient out as they move along. The other thing was that may help us in the future is if you may be familiar that the governor or the president's Commission on Opioid Abuse just presented to the president last week, I think, and asked him or advised him to make a national state of emergency for the opioid abuse epidemic. And if that were to occur, there would probably be some funding out of that coming to local and state governments.
Okay. Ms. Barnes?
I was just curious, how many participants do you think you'd be able to work with?
I don't know yet. I think we'll take as many as we can because we're going to help as many as we can and do our best to help as many as we can. A lot of factors play into it. You know, if we have an inmate that gets sentenced, we're not going to give them a shot if they're going to prison because there's no need for that. Because the prison system is going to do the same thing that we do, is they're going to wait until the last month of incarceration when they're getting ready to re-enter society and then start them on the program because they, you know, tentatively should be drug-free while they're, incarcerated. So, you know, we're going to go ahead and rule those out. We're going to be looking for ones that are getting on probation, ones that are getting completely released from a sentence, ones that maybe we could put on our impact program that we do. So we're, you know, it's hard to say. A lot of things got to fit. Ones that don't have insurance, you know, we're going to have to look for ways, hopefully through Trillium and hopefully through Medicaid, look for ways to get them insurance so they're on the outside. They don't have to pay that amount of money each month.
How many would you say you have a month or a year or something that would qualify, that you?
It's really hard to
Just
say.
trying to get a handle
I
on
would say,
how-
you know, out of 240 in the jail, we probably maybe have 50 to 80 that are opioid dependent. And that's just a guess based on, you know, kind of stats and how they go. And then you have to rule out some, out of the 50 to 80, you have to rule out, you know, those that don't have insurance or those that are going to prison or those that aren't getting released anytime soon. So, you know, those that might be, you know, pregnant or, you know, their liver functions aren't good enough to take the shot. So you have to rule all those out.
I expect you have a very low percentage of people who have insurance there to begin with.
I would expect so, but we are looking for ways, especially through the company that we're working with, to kind of get reductions in the price of the cost and things like that. But, you know, insurance would be definitely the way to go for them.
Any other questions? Major, I know Wilmington, I read in something I read, is known to be the worst in the state for this particular problem.
In the United States.
In the United States. Okay, I thought that, but I wasn't going to make that statement. Do I assume that we are also considered real bad based we were the only other one, or did your attendance at this conference, or what do you think enabled us to move to be the second one in the state?
We were asked based on our commitment to drug enforcement.
Okay.
Okay. that was basically the reason we were asked. They knew we had that drug task force, and they knew we worked hard at arresting drug dealers, and that's why we were asked.
Maybe what Chief of Nashville is doing as well, possibly.
Yep.
Mhm. Okay, all right. All right, we thank you, sir. No action taken by the board at this point in time, so we
Yes, sir.
appreciate you bringing that to us.
Yes, sir.
Keep us updated on it.
Thank y'all.
Next item on the agenda is item 10, renewal of franchise agreement for emergency services, Brian Brantley. Good morning, sir.
Just the first renewal for this fiscal year for the medical transport services that we use when our units can't handle, and that's North State Medical and Eastern Medical. And this would be the first approval, and I'll be back next month for the second approval.
Any questions from board members at this time?
I had a constituent in my district asked me over the weekend about K&L. I wasn't aware of them.
K&L has been one of ours in the past, and we talked with the owner, and he said he was just not interested this year, but he would possibly be back again next year for a request.
You know, the reason they asked me, they were wondering what had happened. That in fact, what they were saying to me, like he might be out of business, or at least temporarily.
I don't think our employee went into that with him when he just asked, did he want...
That was what they were saying to me, and one knew what happened. Did Nash County drop him or something?
No, we had heard that he did not want to reapply, so we actually contacted him to make sure. And he told us that not at this time, he was not going to apply this year. So we got the two requests, North State and Eastern Medical. And I'll come back in next month, and then Chairman Davis will sign those if y'all approve that second approval.
Okay. Any other questions? Entertain a motion to do the first approval of the franchise agreement.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bellfield.
Second.
Second by Mr. Outlaw. Any questions on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Brandt.
Thank
you. Next item on the agenda for Mr. Hill is bids for the landfill expansion project. Yes, we had good news on our bidding for the last month and bad news. Mr. Hill, sorry you bringing the not so good news.
Yes.
But welcome.
Thank you. As you know, we have reviewed these bids before, put them out for 30 days, an advertisement for the landfill expansion project. That's a 3.7 acre footprint. It's a 5 to 7 year time frame of expanding the C&D facility. We feel like we probably, I've made the statement in the past, I've got an engineer to back us up here, hopefully, but Mr. Vance Moore is with me, and you've all met Mr. Moore too. That in July we had about a year left, and we think we've got about a year left in the landfill. With the concern with how long the state will take to then approve accepting waste to go in the facility. Now, having said that, that's a fairly tight time frame in itself. But we had budgeted for this project a total of $400,000, of which about $350,000 or $346,000 was the estimate for the construction part of this particular expansion. We received 3 bids. We, excuse me, advertised it for 30 days and excuse me, and had the bid opening July 13th, I believe, and had a pre-bid conference, had 4 companies represented at that time. Long story short, we received 3 bids, as you know. They were way over our estimates, over the engineer's estimates, and over our expectations, quite frankly. Again, we had estimated about $346,000, and the bids came in, as you know, the lowest one with Barnhill Construction Company at $753,553. And the second one was a pretty good-sized jump with S.T. Wooten, second lowest at $907,285. And the third being a company out in the western part of the state in Graham County Land Company at $954,164. I've come to you this morning and saying it's way over budgeted. It's about double of what we budgeted. And the staff has talked about this on a number of times and had considerable discussion, of course, with the county manager, myself, and the engineer. And the staff recommends the rejection of all bids for the landfill expansion project due to all the bids being over the budgeted amount.
Any questions of Mr. Hill or the engineer at this time, the board members?
Well,
Mr. Outlaw?
for clarification, so if you reject the bids, then what do you do next?
Well, obviously, we are going to give out a landfill.
But my point is, if you reject the bids, then you're going to probably come back and there's going to be some discussion about the amount of the budget.
And, well, I think what we would perhaps do first is rebid, come back, and I think it will have to be a budgeted readjustment there. And I think we would request that this board allow us to rebid them. A couple of factors would be involved. Have we been in a glut? As far as the summer months, was it the busiest time, the worst time to accept a bid when everybody's busy? Secondly, would there be a chance for some modifications or revisions in the specs? Now, I know we've looked at that already, and it may or may not be, but that would be some consideration. And the engineer, Mr. Moore, Mike could answer these sorts of things more technically, but I would see us coming back to this board to rebid.
I'm just thinking you come back and you reject these bids, you come back and we're going to increase the amount of the budget to some number, we're going to rebid it, and chances are if we rebid it in the very near future, we're going to get similar bids unless they decide, you rejected my first bid, so I'll just let you go.
Yeah.
What can you do to reduce the bid amount that you've already got?
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Okay, go.
Yes,
go ahead.
sir.
Go ahead. You go first.
I was just going to say, in hopes that when we get out of the summer months, that folks would be less busy, maybe a little more interested in a project this size to bid on, which would increase the competitiveness of the bid. And secondly, a re-look at the specs to see if there's something that could be modified or reduced.
I'm thinking you probably already looked at the specs.
We have.
So you know what's there, but what you're dealing with now is a compression of time.
That is correct also. That is correct.
Mr. Lamb?
I was going to say that we were looking at probably November, December, rebidding this. We believe we have about a year left in the current space, and barring a major hurricane or something, we should be okay if we bid it again in November, December, that time period.
So unless we have a major hurricane between now and November, we should be okay.
Right. If we have a hurricane, that landfill space will fill up very fast.
And then what will we have?
We'll have more money.
We'll have more money, but we'll have a mess.
Yep.
We would have to deal with it on site, or what would we do? That's a good question.
Well, I think we would. I posed that very worst case scenario. What if we even get, you rebid it and you accept bids as early as, let's say, December. Let's say you accept a bid in December. And then you're in the winter months for construction, and we would hope that construction could begin by early spring. But if we absolutely came to full capacity, and this gets tighter and tighter as we go to the top, like a pyramid. You can't move around very much after you get to the top of this, and we're getting close. I expect we would just have to stop receiving C&D. We just could not take it at the landfill anymore. And C&D is not something you typically put in containers and haul off to a different area. So I think I'll remember C&D as construction demolition. That's, the construction companies would have to find a new landfill unless you can think of an alternative to that.
Or some form of a transfer station, temporary.
Yeah.
Transfer station, but that would be costly also.
So in the event we have a major hurricane, then we potentially will just be accumulating those items in the county, because you don't have any place to take them.
And I don't know where we would accumulate them.
Well, I mean, if I have trees down, I guess I accumulate it in front of my house.
Yeah.
Until such time
I
as
see what you're saying.
you've already got a compressed timetable and you're moving it out.
Yeah.
And it just seems to me like there should be some opportunity to go back to your low bidder and do this spec review, and is there any opportunity to lower this cost? And why wouldn't you just ask them if in November is it going to be any cheaper?
Mr. Outlaw,
I
we
believe you
did that process and tried to negotiate with the low bidder without success at all.
You've gone back to the bid.
If I may also, in the event of a hurricane, tree and limbs, that kind of debris, we could handle with a tub grinder. It would be buildings that came down and.
Complete disaster is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So if we go back to Barnhill in November and we rebid this thing, and we've already had these discussions with Barnhill and the other bidders, and they know that we are delaying this process in the hopes that the bid price will come down, if I were bidding it, I'd probably hold the line because I'm already $200,000 lower than your next lowest bidder.
Mr. Chairman.
If I could, let me say a few things. Mr. Outlaw, the things you're bringing up, we in a roundtable discussion went through each one of them. We got kind of a quirk bid that day because we had one bidder that attended the pre-bid conference to show up.
Mm-hmm.
We had numerous other ones that didn't come, and we had two bidders that showed up that we didn't expect to come, and that they were real high bids. Mr. Tolson has worked also and contacted some other people that were at the pre-bid and some other contractors to make sure that we would have competitive bids in November, December, whenever we decide to bid it, more competitive than what we got now. There's no guarantee in construction, but we're very, very likely to get better bids is the reason we're taking the chance that we're taking. The other thing, Mr. Hill, I'm almost certain you're gonna take the one item and do it in-house that we discussed and save that large amount of money, are we not?
The moving the stockpile.
Moving the stockpile,
of
yes.
yard debris. We've got 27,000 yards of
Right.
debris there. Of course, what we were talking about here is relocating it, only to have to grind it later.
Correct, yeah.
And this way, we're looking at, and I think we're making contact with the city of Rocky Mountain, a larger tub grinder, to see if we can grind it in place. But that would involve some cost in that, but at least it wouldn't be a double cost factor.
It would be about 25%, I think we determined on what the bid was to do it, though. And so, Wayne, we've not taken this lightly. We've investigated very heavily to see what our future might look like if we rebid it.
Well, here's what I would say. I would say that with the information that was presented to this full board, those were reasonable questions that were asked.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like those questions had already been asked and had been answered. So it might have been a good idea to share that information in advance of your presentation with this board, and then I would not have posed those questions because I would have already known that you had been through that process.
Well, if I could, Wayne, all this kind of took place in a real big hurry last week, and yes, email, we could have told you what all we did, but your questions are excellent questions, no question about that. And it's something that we worked on real hard prior to collectively coming to a decision to rebid the thing.
My main
So-
concern is if you've done it, and it sounds like that we're going to get probably a better bid, that's great. I hope between now and then, we don't have a hurricane that creates issues for us. The likelihood of that is probable, that it could happen. And if it does, then we're all going to be receiving the phone calls and the questions. Why did you do what you did? Why didn't you act? Why did you compress the time? I mean, that's just the things we'll have to deal with.
Oh, correct. Ms. Barnes?
I was just gonna, I think you covered it. Hopefully we'll get more bids. I mean, we got 8 bids on the Shell Center, so hopefully if we rebid it, we'll get more than 3.
Seems like,
Just,
may I?
go ahead, Mr. Belfield.
Seem like to me, if you grind these limbs, especially the smaller ones, it could be used for muck, and that would save your landfill from filling up so fast. Are you doing that now? Or?
Well, these are separate components here. We've got a yard debris part component and then a C and D portion. And the actual yard debris is not a problem. We're going to either move that or have it tub ground.
Yeah, but I'm talking about in case of a hurricane or something like that.
We
where
could
you
get
have an excessive amount.
We could move a tub grinder in there. And during emergency situations, you would hope you might be able to curtain burn yard debris.
Really, the concern, the yard debris is really not an item that we're terribly concerned about because you got a way of handling that.
It's the C and D part.
Right, it's the C and D part, right. Any other questions, Mr. Deal?
City grinds that stuff up.
Well, they're talking about trees coming down on houses. If you had that situation, then you've got to deal with that.
Yeah.
But what we're saying, Mr. Outlaw, we can still deal with
yeah, I
that. That's not an issue. We got plenty of room to put that stuff till we choose to do something with it. Any other questions?
Well, here's what I would ask, when we rebid this, when you provide us with the rebids later in the year, continue to provide us with these initial bids so we can have it as a point of comparison, to see exactly what we were able to accomplish by this delay.
And I hope you did get these again in your packet, the attachment 1 and attachment 2 that came from the engineer. We sent them out last month, and I asked that they be included in this month's packet too.
Okay.
Mine's totally based on the budget. We just didn't have the money in the budget.
All right, for no other questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the rejection of the bids for the landfill expansion.
So moved.
Second.
Was that Mr. Outlaw? Moved by Mr. Outlaw, second by Ms. Barnes. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Teal.
Thank you.
Next item is item 12, Housing Urgent Repair Program. Ms. McGee, good morning.
Good morning. Nash County has been awarded $75,000 by the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency under the 2017 cycle of the Urgent Repair Program. The program is funded through the North Carolina Housing Trust Funds, and no county funds are needed to execute the program. The board has already adopted a project budget ordinance, I believe, in May. URP 17 provides deferred loans of up to $8,000 each to low-income homeowners for crucial repairs that enable the residents to remain in their homes. The program does not require the entire dwelling to be brought up to usual rehabilitation standards, but can be helpful in stabilizing deterioration. In some cases, no additional assistance is sought after the urgent repairs are completed. Many of these rehabilitations in our area include HVAC units, roof repairs, handicapped accessibility improvements, perhaps in the bathroom or a ramp or railings. Approximately 10 houses will be repaired through this program within Nash County, excluding inside the city of Rocky Mount, which is required for this particular program, and I believe the city has its own program. All homes must be occupied by special needs households with incomes at or below 50% of the median household income, and 50% of the units must have incomes at or below the 30% mark. Special needs households include those with an individual who is elderly, disabled, a military veteran, a single parent, or has a large family, or has children with elevated lead levels. URP 17 regulations require that policies be developed for procurement and disbursement plus client assistance, and draft policies have been reviewed by the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency to ensure program updates are included and attached. And Nash County has used these policies successfully in a number of URP rounds in the past. We are currently scheduled to take applications for URP 17 from September 11th through September 20th. And our requested actions are to approve the policies subject to any potential further amendments by the Housing Finance Agency, and authorize the county manager or his designee to execute the documents and reports for administering the program.
All right, any questions of Ms. McGee on this program? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the policies subject to other amendments recommended by the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency that may come up in the future.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Combs, second by Ms. Richardson. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. And now I call for a motion to authorize the county manager or his designee to execute documents and reports for administering the grant.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Outlaw.
Second.
Second by Mr. Belfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Item 13, Ms. McGee.
The next item is to request that the board adopt Nash County's plan to further fair housing. You may recall that we have a $750,000 CDBG building reuse pass-through grant for Nut Cow to renovate a shell building in Whitaker Business and Industry Center. And until that goal of 47 full-time jobs is reached, the grant remains open until Commerce might decide to close it. In addition, we have many other federal grants or loans which require that we implement activities related to fair housing. As a recipient of federal community development funds under Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, Nash County is obligated to administer community development programs in compliance with Title VIII and to certify that it affirmatively furthers fair housing. Nash County has developed a fair housing plan to meet this requirement and remain in good standing with both federal and state agencies. And the fair housing plan outlines obstacles to furthering fair housing within the county and identifies program activities to further fair housing affirmatively. This plan is similar to one adopted previously, and for which all program activities in that plan have been completed. And as recommended by the North Carolina Department of Commerce, we used a model plan and tailored it to Nash County, including new quarterly program activities which will be implemented over the next couple of years. We recommend that the board adopt the updated recipients plan to further fair housing.
Any questions, Mr. McGee, from board members?
And these are grants.
Well, this plan is for
It-
grants
is it-
and loans that are received through the
Oh,
federal
both
or state
grants
government.
and loans? Oh.
Correct.
Basically, as I understand it, Ms. McGee, to be able to apply and receive a wide range of grants, we have to have this fair housing standard adopted for Nash County. It's not really a grant that we're doing right now, Mr. Belfield. It's just we've got to keep our fair housing standard updated so we can qualify for many other types of grants from the federal government. Did I state that correctly?
Correct. And when we're monitored, this is something they ask us to prove, prove that we've done on a quarterly basis.
Any other questions? I'd entertain a motion To approve the agreement and, have I jumped things? Yes, I have, excuse me. I entertain a motion to adopt the updated recipient plan to further fair housing in Nash County.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Richardson, second by Mr. Belfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by like sign? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Item 14, Natural Resources Conservation Service and the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA agreement. Ms. Wood?
Okay, this was presented in the last commissioners' meeting. Just an overview of the agreement, and I just want to get approval for it. So the Nash County Natural Resources Conservation Services needs to enter into an agreement with the Nash County NRCS office, along with the United States Department of Agriculture, in lieu of a lease agreement with our cooperative extension building. We had a lease agreement, and what they want to do is basically offer us a special program, or they're offering us a special program, and this agreement begins October 1st. It's a 5-year agreement, and our Soil and Water Department will oversee 30 programs over a 5-year period, and each program will reimburse through this agreement $640 for each program. And so they anticipate having 6 programs each year, which would be a total of $3,840, as opposed to leasing a specific space. And I just wanted to get approval for the agreement that we'll file the application by August 11th.
Mr. Belfield and Mr. Outlaw, we covered this in our last mid-month meeting, and basically what it boils down to, instead of receiving rent for the space down at the Ag Center, they are paying us an amount per program that they put in there, the way the government has moved to. It is the way we understood it.
For a 5-year period.
For a
Over a
5-year
5-year
period.
period.
Yes, sir.
What about after the 5 years?
Well,
Hopefully, they'll revisit the
again.
agreement.
Okay.
We've been working under a lease that came back from 30 years.
1992.
1992, yeah, 25 years ago.
And it's really, I mean, the way that the agreement reads, it's a grant program with a CFDA number, but their feeling was that they didn't want to lease anymore on square footage. They wanted to have.
By program.
Right, have programs.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agreement.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Combs,
Second.
second by Ms. Wells. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Wood. Next item is budget amendments, if you want to move on to those.
Okay. The following budget amendments are presented for the board's consideration for fiscal year 17-18. I have quite a few reappropriations of fund balance. I don't know if you want me to start with those and we do separate approval, or if you want me to just go through them as usual.
Pleasure of the board.
If there's something individual.
Go through them and.
Yeah, that's what I.
Okay.
Explain to us first what a reappropriation is.
We have they were funds that were budgeted last year through a donation or a grant that we need to reappropriate those funds specifically for that department to be used.
Because it's ongoing, or either we hadn't completed the work yet.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
So the first item is with the Sheriff's Department. It's a reappropriation of $15,081. It's for community support, K-9 program donations, and the DARE program donations. Next item is emergency services. This is to reappropriate their unspent fiscal year 2017 supplemental emergency management grant. It's $18,725. Next item is with Department of Social Services. This is to reappropriate the unspent fiscal year 17 funds received for Special Child Adoption Fund, $41,699. The Health Department would like to reappropriate unspent fiscal year 17 funds for Meaningful Use Incentive Program for Phase 1 The medical records system update, $42,500. Next item is with Parks and Recreation to reappropriate 2017 local sponsorship donations, $3,356. And the last reappropriations with Aging Services is to reappropriate Senior Health Insurance Information Program, Medicare Improvement Patient and Provider Act funding, Project Lifesaver donations, Senior Center donations, and cost share programs. And these are primarily, the Senior Center donations are for day trips where the collections took place last year, and the trip is actually scheduled for the current year. That was $15,368.
Okay. Any questions on those reappropriations? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Barnes,
Second.
second by
Second.
Ms. Richardson, several people. Thank you. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Emergency Services.
Okay. This amendment is to budget Tier 2 grant proceeds from the North Carolina Division of Emergency Management for hazardous materials, emergency response planning, training, and related exercises. No county funds are requested. It's $1,000. This next amendment is to budget funds received from a fiscal year 16 hazard material emergency preparedness grant program. No county funds are requested. It's $3,200. The next item is for cooperative extension. This budget amendment is to budget additional funds for fiscal year 18 to cover costs of gas expenditures related to the use of the county-owned 4-H van. They're requesting $1,600. This next item is for soil and water. This budget amendment is to budget funds for the North Carolina Community Conservation Program for critical area planning and repair at the Nash Ag Center. Approximately 25% of the critical care area planning and repair will be reimbursed to Nash County from this program. It's a total of $5,920 with $4,440 to be appropriated from fund balance or requested as appropriation for fund balance. Next item is JCPC funding. This budget amendment is to budget additional funding from the JCPC programs. This program, referred to as 7th District TFC, will be sponsored by the Methodist Home for Children to assist with alternatives to commitment to secure facilities for out-of-home placements of youth in the 7th Judicial District. No county funds are requested. This JCPC funding is in addition to what was in the original budget. A new program, $69,131. Next item is for the Register of Deeds. This amendment is to budget funds from the Register of Deeds Automation Fund to complete scanning of 548 books, both bound and loose. The total cost of the project is anticipated to be $74,560. The fiscal year 18 budget already includes $39,650 for scanning of a portion of the books. However, if the project includes all the books at once, it will be a cost savings of approximately $8,700. So they're requesting an additional $34,910, but no county funds are requested, as this is coming from the automation funding. And the last item I have is with the Water and Sewer Department. This budget amendment is to budget funds related to North Carolina DOT agreement to relocate Nash County's existing water main on Bachelor Road to accommodate the North Carolina DOT bridge replacement over Saponi Creek. Based on this agreement, all funds expended by Nash County to relocate the water line will be reimbursed by North Carolina DOT. And we're anticipating $81,270.
That's a total of 6 budget amendments. Any question from commissioners on either of those?
Was the cooperative extension, was that just an oversight in the budgeting process, or?
It was. They received the donations for that van at the very end of the year after our budget had been put into place. And we didn't realize we had missed that.
Any other questions from commissioners? Mr.
Lamb? Again, on the cooperative extension matter, a lot of times we try to see how the budget's looking over the year before we do a budget amendment for something like that. Could we not have moved it from some other line item rather than appropriating from fund balance? Why was that done
We
in
look-
August?
We looked at some of their the way that we worked with the cooperative extension budget this year, we had line items specifically for different events. And in looking at it, now we can still hold off on this one, but in looking at it and how funds were budgeted compared to last year, and what was actually spent, there didn't seem to be additional funding that may be available, but we can certainly hold off until further into the year.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm okay with going through with this one, and I should have called it before now, but, you know, I prefer not to do budget amendments until you know you need to do a budget amendment, because sometimes you might have a position free up, or spending may not be as great as you anticipated, so, but I'm okay with going forward with this one.
Well, we can approve 5 and hold one. What you want
No,
to do?
it's good. We can do it.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion for approval on the 6 budget amendments presented by Ms. Wood.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Belfield,
Second.
second by Mr. Outlaw. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, by like sign. Motion carries. Next, we have board appointments. Stacy?
Good morning.
Good morning.
The following appointments need to be considered. If you will recall, last month, we visited appointments for the Turning Point Workforce Development Board. We need 2 members appointed to the Turning Point Workforce Development Board whose terms expired on June 30th. Commissioner Outlaw requested additional information that was sent out late last week. We do have an application from Commissioner Mary Wells nominating Mark Froham to the board, and his application was attached.
Mr. Fordham has also read all the things and talked with Mr. Williams about what would be requested of being someone. He would be a private citizen on there because you cannot have so many elected officials, most of them, so make sure that the private sector is involved. So I would recommend Mr. Ford.
I have a recommendation from Ms. Wells on Mark Froman for one of those positions. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Outlaw. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by like sign? Motion carries. Mr. Outlaw, you got what you need to help find the second one? Or you looking for someone?
I've got the information, and I'm...
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. Thank you.
For the Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee, we still need to appoint 1 to this committee.
Anybody got anybody to date? We'll keep working on that.
Okay. For the Jury Commission member, in July, the board reappointed Bobby May as a member to the Jury Commission. Unfortunately, Ms. Bobby May has recently experienced some unforeseen matters that will prevent her from serving. Clerk of the Court, Ms. Rachel Joyner, has recommended the appointment of Dr. Reed Parrott, and his application was attached in your packet.
All right, I don't know how you would find anyone that knew the people in Nash County any more than what Dr. Parrott does. Anyone want to present that name for approval?
Move approved.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Belfield, second by Ms. Barnes. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by like sign? Motion carries.
Okay, and for the Consolidated Human Services Board, as you all know, we continue to keep seeking a psychiatrist for that board, and I don't believe we have anybody.
All right.
And I did have one more that, apologize, was not on your agenda, but for the Farmers Market Advisory Board, Ms. Rosemary Dorsey served on the Farmers Market Advisory Board, and Stacy Schatzer has been asked to fill this position and has agreed.
Move for approval.
Moved by Ms. Barnes.
Second.
Second by Ms. Richardson. Any questions on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by like sign? Motion carries, ma'am.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I did make it Saturday morning for the first time this year, unfortunately, but it is a great happening on Saturday mornings. Invite everyone to try to get over there. Annual tax settlement. Mr. Wren, good morning, sir.
Mr. Chairman, good morning to you and everybody else. It's always my pleasure to report to you what I'm going to report, the type of settlement report that I'm going to report to you this morning. We've been very fortunate in recent years. I think we've been able to keep increasing our collections and our collection rate. That performance has improved every year, I think, since the 2013-14 budget year. So we're obviously happy with the trend that we're actually currently in, and obviously there's a lot of reasons for that.
One being hard work.
Yes, sir. I'd like to attribute it all to hard work, but I've always told folks that in my case, a lot of times dumb luck helps too. And but I'll take all of it. I have a really tremendous staff. I cannot brag on them enough. And I get so much support from the staff, the board, and in particular management. I really appreciate every year the interest that management has in what we do, and we just have a good team effort. And before I get into the meat of this, and I won't get bogged down in a lot of details, I do have two key staff members here, Doris Sumner and Donna Tinsley, who have come up. My entire staff is extremely important and very good at what they do. These two ladies here are vital to the results that I'm able to report to you. So having said that, next year if we go down, they might not be here. Just kidding. But
I hope you're just kidding.
Absolutely. But no, this year, as you can see, I'll just hit the high spots. We wound up with, for the county only, no other jurisdictions included, but for Nash County, we wound up with a collection rate of 98.57%, as opposed to 98.47% last year. So you can see that's moving up in the right direction. And in most of these pages that I'm going to share with you, you'll see a key trend here that we like to see, and that is what's left over, left to collect, is moving down. The amount that we're expected to collect moves up. That means that the economy is improving, things are growing, things are better. So this is a good, positive start in this report. Then when you look further, as it's broken out, this first page here of the breakout, it includes all years. In other words, not only the current year, but the previous 10 years as well, that we're always responsible with for collecting the 10-year period. But again, this is the county only. You can see last year we were at 91.85%. This year we're at 92.27%. And again, you see the year-to-date receivables, what's left over for us to collect, continues to move in the right direction, and that is down. And then when you look at the prior years only, which is page 3 of your settlement report, you'll see the trend continues. Now, when I look at this, yes, the collection, the percentage to collect is down. This will be the only one that I'm going to say is down. It's 15.09% as opposed to 18.61% last year. But as you can see, the amount of that is left over for us to collect is lower than the previous year. And as that amount shrinks, as we continue to get better at what we do, that it's normal for that percentage. What you've got left gets harder and harder, more difficult to collect. But we like the trend that we're seeing there as well. Then when we break it down into the classes of property, Looking at real estate only, you can see that real estate collections were up slightly this year to 98.3 as opposed to 98.2% last year. And you can see some growth there as well. You get into the personal property, which includes everything, obviously, that's not real property, personal property of individuals as well as machinery and equipment for our businesses. That continued to increase as well, 99.16% opposed to 98.14%, 98.94% last year. And again, a good positive economic indicator is that that portion of the base continues to grow. Motor vehicles, I know the way it's reported, we're always at 100%. But I think there, another good indicator is that you see here that the amount collected and the amount charged has increased considerably over the previous year. Another sign that our economy continues to improve.
So, right there, Mr.
Yes,
Wren,
sir.
I guess it's 100% because we're reporting what actually goes on the license plate.
Yes,
and they
sir.
collect it all.
Yes.
The month it's paid.
Yeah,
It's paid, right.
It's
So
reported.
they were supposed to pay in June, and they didn't pay until August.
Right.
It shows up in August, and it's not used against us. 'Cause
Right.
that's where you got,
Yeah.
that's where you
That's where I miscalculated. I
Yeah,
got it.
That's true. It's
I think
just
my
all
light
the way
bulb
that
just went off.
we're required to
So
report.
really, the fact that you're riding around with an expired tag doesn't affect the collection rate.
That's right.
Right.
Why didn't you tell me that sooner?
Okay.
I do have a typo there on your page 5.
Okay, on page 5.
On the last year's, it should be the 15-16 at the top.
Oh, yeah.
That's just
It is
typo.
a typo, yeah. Thank you, sir. Then, moving right along, then when you go countywide, in other words, we collect for not only the county only, but also for the towns that we collect for, and the fire districts that we collect for. This is what we've been able to do for the current year. You can see that the percentage is still up from last year being 98.6%, and the rate this year at 98.18%. That's all jurisdictions that we're responsible for collecting for.
Well, Mr. Wren, hadn't we probably helped each one of those ones that we've taken collection for?
Yes, sir, I would
but
definitely
follow.
argue that.
Yeah.
I would. I think we've been able to help every jurisdiction. That would be my opinion. Then all years, let's see. Now this is, this being all years, sometimes I confuse myself. Okay. This is all years without, this is all years without the tax and tags. Oh, with tax and tags, right?
With tax and tags, I would think.
Yeah, with tax and tags.
Yeah.
So you can see still the trend goes up to 89.69% as compared to 89.14% the previous year. And then finally, just the prior years for all jurisdictions broken out with no current year, prior years only, you see the trend developing. Still, the year-to-date receivables last year was just over $5 million, and this year we wound up with just under $5 million at $4.8 million. Again, a move in the right direction. So Again, I just, the economy apparently continues to increase or to improve ever so slightly, and that's a benefit. We've been able to develop over the recent years, I think, good strategies, and we continue to work those extremely hard. Donna and Doris and the rest of the staff, they just really, they know what they're doing, and they're good at what they do, and I really do appreciate that. But I also appreciate, too, the fact that our taxpayers are trying, obviously, very hard on their part to cooperate with us. So it's just a joint effort from all of us involved. And again, I do want to thank management and the staff. So what I need for you to do is, if you would approve the settlement report this year and then recharge me with collecting the outstanding taxes and the new levy. And I will mention, since we're on the subject of bills, where the billing file is at the printer now. So we expect most likely that the bills will start hitting the street toward the end of the week, some of them possibly the first of next week. But bills are getting ready to go out and are arriving at a mailbox near you soon. So.
Great. Any questions, Mr. Wren, on the annual tax settlement statement? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the tax settlement statement and to recharge Mr. Wren with the same duties for the next fiscal year.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Wells,
Second.
second by Mr. Combs. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Sir, you are recharged.
Thank you.
Number 18, monthly tax report for information only. Any questions on that? Basically incorporated, well, no, this is the new year. No questions? Tax refunds, you still have none, Mr. Wren?
None. No action required.
No action required there. We thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Board members, we're at item 20, which is commissioners' comments. Ms. Barnes, I think you want to talk about calendar a little bit.
Yes, I noticed for our September meeting, due to the holiday, we'll be meeting on the 11th. Then we will have our second meeting the following Monday, which is the 18th. And then our regular scheduled meeting for October is the 2nd, so that's 3 meetings within a 4-week time frame. And just was concerned that staff would have time to prepare. Just bring that to your attention. We need to make any changes or keep it like it is.
And the next concern was about December.
December meeting also, which the 18th would be our second meeting, which would fall on a week before Christmas, so just.
I believe you suggested maybe last meeting that we possibly consider not having 2 meetings in the month of July and December. Any board member have a problem with that? If not,
I think it's a good idea.
okay. I knew you would.
And for informational purposes, Mr. Chairman, just like prior to having 2 meetings a month, you can always have a special meeting or recess a meeting for a later date.
Well, the first thing, do I need to do a motion to alter moving forward, having only 1 meeting in July and December, or just a statement to that effect, okay? And we'll be changing the calendar we adopted for this year by about December.
I think I go ahead and get a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, times one.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to not have the second meeting in December, as including not having 2 meetings in July and December moving forward.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Barnes,
Second.
second by Mr. Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. And pleasure of the board on the September of this year. And Mr. Lamb, you have any thoughts on that as far as staff needs,
Yeah,
upcoming items?
Yeah, We were able to avoid that a prior month because there were 5 Mondays.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess that was Memorial Day. So what we have scheduled right now is 2 consecutive Mondays. So
If we moved, if we still met during the first week in September, that would space it out.
yeah,
little bit.
if y'all wanted to meet either the 5th or the 6th, it would space it out a little bit. That'd be a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
I think in past years, we have
Done Tuesday.
occasionally moved it on Tuesday. Do you anticipate, well, I think since we've done 2 months, well, pleasure of the board. Any thoughts? And one suggestion was to have the first meeting on the 5th of September, which is not far off. Anyone got a conflict on the calendars with that already? That's fine with the chairman.
You have a conflict with the 5th?
That's my question. Does anyone have a conflict with the 5th? Yes, sir.
It'd be Tuesday, the 5th, instead of regularly the 4th, Monday, since that's Labor Day.
We go okay with that then? Ms. Barnes, is that okay with you?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay. Well, what we'll do,
If the meeting is short, because I have a meeting in the afternoon at 3 o'clock that's set on the 5th.
well, the only thing I can say there is, Mr. Bellfield, I do my best, but it's controlled by agenda and participation from board members. I don't see any reason why we'd be here at 3 o'clock.
No, well, I need time to get to
About when?
3 o'clock meeting.
I
So if
think-
we are out of here no later than 2:30,
Yeah,
it'd be okay.
okay. I think we can certainly do that, and I do have a conflict on Wednesday. So 9 o'clock, on Tuesday the 5th will be our first board meeting. That would be the only change, because the other one is already scheduled for the, Ms. Barnes, help me out, the 18th.
18.
Yes.
Well, I have a conflict there. I have a set meeting at 10 o'clock.
Well, actually, that meeting is our regular scheduled 2:30 meeting, Mr. Bellfield.
That's right, it's 2:30. Okay. One thinking. It's okay.
Okay.
It's fine.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to change our first September meeting from the 12th into the 5th at 9 o'clock.
So moved. On the 11th. to the 5th.
Excuse me, you're right, the 11th. Moved by Ms. Barnes. Second?
Yeah.
Second by Ms. Richardson. Any questions on the motion? I stated it wrong. We all caught up? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Okay. Ms. Barnes, anything else?
Oh, I did want to mention that Commissioner Cone and I met with Scott Rogers and other staff members regarding the Bailey, the new substation for actually the Green Hornet Fire District, which is located in my district, but the Green Hornet is a Bailey Fire Department. So at our August 21st meeting, we will discuss taking action on changing that fire district from the Sims, it's currently being served by the Sims Fire Department, to be served by the Green Hornet Fire Department. Does that make sense? I just want to let the public know if there's any opposition to that or any concerns, that they can let us know. But that would be the recommendation, I think, from Scott.
And that's on the line of a better rating on the fire district, I assume.
Right, on insurance, right.
Okay.
And I think we have a similar situation in the Brattleboro area, where we contract with some,
We had a similar one we dealt with a couple of months ago, but it was in the southern part.
Silver Lake.
Silver Lake,
Silver Lake.
yeah.
So we had a petition that was sent into,
Right.
and had 21 people sign that to change that fire district.
I don't remember the other one, it's been a couple of months ago. Does it require a public hearing prior to doing that? Anybody know?
Not,
Right. It doesn't really matter. I just wondered
The
if we'd be
Sims.
doing a public hearing on that. Right. Oh, yeah. A long time ago, you did indeed.
Yes, that's what I was talking about.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. In the Nash County part of the Sims District. Got it.
That's right.
Yep, okay. All right. Anything else,
That's
Ms.
all.
Barnes? Other comments from commissioners?
I just want to give a public thank you to Miss Melvin. Recently, my grandson applied for his driving permit, and he needed some information, a document. I went to Miss Melvin, and through the world of technology, she personally was able to accommodate that need. And I say that because I believe in dealing with Miss Melvin that she would do that for me, but I believe she would do that for every one of our constituents in Nash County. And I publicly thank you for the courtesy and the promptness in which you dealt with that situation. Thank you.
Cool. Other comments? Just reading the agenda for the end of the week, for the association, I noticed we had that ethics class, and have you done that, Mr. Combs, already?
Ethics.
Yes,
He has already done it.
yeah, Lisa and Miss Lou.
I actually did one online.
You did, I just need your phone.
My question is, do we know who needs to do it so we can make sure we get it at the end of the week?
We do. I think Miss Lou is the only one that needs to do it,
Okay, I don't need to do
and
it.
she's scheduled to do it. No. 'cause
You gotta
you're
do it
not
within a year of being re-elected.
Re-elected,
Okay,
elected or
okay.
re-elected.
All right, and you've done yours, Mr. Combs.
You did it at the.
Did yours online.
I did mine online. I was appointed to a farm legacy board. I can't remember the name of it now. And so they got me, overstayed on me until I got it done. So I had to do it earlier this year.
Keep in mind, some of those do not work for the Board of Commissioners, because I
Okay.
have two that I have to do. You might want to check,
I will.
make sure that it qualifies you, because it probably does not.
Okay.
Because I have one that I have to do for my building code council that won't take care of my one for the commissioners.
Right.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yep.
Right.
Let's see where I was at. Did we clear, no other comments from commissioners? That's the only, that's the one item I had, and I've made another comment here, but I right this minute can't read my writing. Decent, all right. Okay, we took care of that already. Well, several of you are still here. Yeah, Mr. Tolton came back as well. The board knows, we talked about previously getting very favorable news on the Northern Nash water system. And of course, we were a little bit hesitant on talking about it too much till we actually got our confirmation letter, which we did receive on August 1st. And I'm just absolutely delighted at how it turned out, as I'm sure all board members are. It's probably the best grant situation the county has ever received, or certainly in my 15 years on the board. And we had quite a few staff members working on this. I know Ms. McGee led that effort, and I can promise you all the people in that district greatly appreciate the effort of staff on this. We are moving forward with design. In reading that letter, I saw a couple of milestones that if we don't do, we in trouble. So I'm sure everybody that's in charge of those, Ms. McGee shaking her head to make sure, and one of them included something from outside doing something, if we just make sure that also happens. And I'll be back with staff shortly to look at the rates moving forward and how we want to deal with Dorchester and Red Oak. But $3 million grant, $3 million loan, interest-free, and then an extremely good rate of 1.91% for the balance of what we may need to borrow, which is about $3.5 million. It's just like getting Christmas in August, the way we look at it. I don't see how it could have been any better. So we will certainly be moving forward. It couldn't come at a better time. I actually had a citizen drop by my house yesterday afternoon. He saw me out at the barn and brought me a little piece of copper pipe to show me what his well had done to his water system, which had caused a leak in his kitchen ceiling, which made the ceiling fall. And he just wanted to know when in the world we were gonna get public water up on, Red Oak Castalia Road, Miss Richardson, which I think may be in your area. But, certainly couldn't come at a better time, and I appreciate everything everybody's done. And Mr. Tolson, if you would just do whatever you can to get that job to bid as well, I know you will, and I'm seriously considering asking y'all to order at least one load of pipe and string it out by the road somewhere so they'll know we're working on it. But I was somewhat disappointed. I thought we'd see surveyors along the roadways, and maybe they would ask what was going on. And then I read that we were surveying with drones this time. Indeed, is that what we're doing, which amazes me? Some of it is, okay. Maybe they'll ask what that thing is doing flying down that road, then we'll be pleased to tell them it's working on the water system. Anything else, prior to turning it over to the manager? I'll just say I continue to be concerned, and I talked to the sheriff about it last week, about our increase in calls from our area located in our largest municipality. That seems to be a trend that's headed upward that I hope doesn't continue, because it would require at some point additional resources on our part if we indeed have to continue working areas like Gold Rock and numerous other type of crimes that he has been working on. I do understand that the sheriff's position is that he is hired or elected by all people in Nash County, and he feels compelled, he wants to serve all people in Nash County, but it's just a situation where it could require additional resources on his part moving forward if we continue to do investigative type work and other things within our largest municipality. So hopefully that trend will get better, and we'll just have to continue monitoring that. But I think he is certainly going to serve when he is called to do so, and that will be certainly at his pleasure to do that, and certainly he should do that. But with that said, Mr. Lamb, manager's report.
Well, in connection.
Excuse me, Mr. Belfield, go ahead.
In connection with what you just said, we just need better cooperation between the city of Rocky Mount Police Department and the Sheriff's Department.
Couldn't agree with you more, and I do believe
that's something that we need to work on now. If the commissioners have to get involved in it, I'm ready too.
Sure. I agree with you, and maybe we could help. I'm not sure we could, but I do think our department has tried very hard to facilitate that.
Yeah, and they're doing a good job.
Yes, sir.
But we just need to wake up the Rocky Mount City Police Department need it.
Well,
somehow.
You're a little more blunt than I am, but I agree with you 100%. Mr. Lane?
I hate it's come to that, but we have to speak.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, got a few things I want to follow up first on Mr. Outlaw's comment about the Register of Deeds office. Y'all may not realize this, but that's one of the few departments in county government that pays for itself. Their entire budget, the amount of stamps and recording fees that we receive is slightly more than what her entire budget is. So
I did fail to mention I did pay a fee, but it was well worth it.
And then that automation fee is something that is mandated by the state that she's putting good use to, and restoring books. And but it's good to have a department that pays for itself, so thank you. I've given her a shout out at the last couple department head meetings on the same subject. The final budget for 16-17 looks very favorable. Y'all did appropriate $1 million in June, anticipating additional revenues, not excess revenues, and it looks like we're going to add to the fund balance in addition to that. So the year ended very well. To follow up on the taxes that Mr. Wren has talked about, I've given y'all a chart, 3 pages. First of all, I want to say he does a great job. His staff does a great job. Very responsive. During the last couple of months of the fiscal year, they make a real effort to collect overdue taxes. And that first chart you'll see shows the overall tax rate that includes vehicles. And vehicles are about 12% of the total budget. And as he mentioned, vehicles went up about $500,000 in levy and collections. Personal property went up about $500,000 in levy and collections. And real property went up about $500,000 in levy and collections. So you can tell the first chart shows all county taxes, and it went up again. The next chart excludes vehicles, since I wanted to show the year where it went up a whole lot. You can see 9 months of that was the new system, where you had 100% collection instead of 85% collection. And then the following year was from 9802 to 9818 was the year that we had a full 12 months of just vehicles. So you can see that in addition to vehicles going up because of the new system, they've also been able to increase collections for the real property and personal property, which again is about 88% of the budget. The year-end report that he gave you that showed the outstanding balance includes the current year plus 10 years. What we have for you here is what the audit will indicate, which is the current year plus 9 prior years. And you can see with increasing our collection rate in the current year and going after prior year, our 10-year outstanding balance, we anticipate in the audit will be less than $4 million for the 10 years. So again, great job, Jim. It makes a difference. It keeps the commissioners from having to even consider raising taxes, and they're very happy about that.
Amen.
It's already been mentioned, we got the NCACC conference in Durham Thursday through Saturday night. We've got a few things there that are special to Nash County that I wanted to bring up. One is that Nash County has been selected as the Northeast District's recipient of the County Government Partnership Award with Cooperative Extension, and they're going to receive that award Saturday, August 12th at 11:30. If you're going to be there on Saturday and can attend, let us know so we can reserve seating for you. I want to mention also that the 911 director, Bryant Fisher, I've talked to a few of y'all, but we go to these conventions and they give these awards out, and apparently Nash has rarely applied for them. This year we made an effort. We sent out the notice to all the department heads, and the 911 department will be receiving an award, an innovation award for its Nash Community College Dispatch Academy, which is the 911 school. So they will be receiving that award. And also, which has been really good, I think y'all are aware, they've explained it. They've had 7 or 8, 9 people in each class. They're now in your fourth class, and it is a good pipeline for the best of the class to come work for us. So we don't always get them, but we're getting a good flow of good employees from that school. Also, the EMS department will be receiving an innovation award for the community paramedic program, which the commissioners are very supportive of. And so in addition to the cooperative extension, we'll be getting 2 more awards.
Mr. Lamb, would all that be around the 11:30 time frame, or?
Business, probably the business.
No,
Saturday?
the innovation awards, we'll have to check on that to find out exactly when they are. They will probably be separate from the cooperative extension.
So maybe
award.
let us know when
We will.
about when all these awards are going to be presented.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
Well, you have an awards banquet, I think, on Saturday, do you not?
In the afternoon, at night, I'm not sure, we'll check. We'll check that and distribute, or she may be able to look at it right now and tell us when they do the innovation awards.
Well, you can email it out. Be fine.
Okay. Okay. I also want you to know that the Sheriff's Department, after the last meeting, requested that they be able to apply for 2 COPS grants. They applied for 4 last year, did not receive them. I allowed them to go ahead, and I signed off on them going ahead and applying for the grants for 2 positions, since we'd already met and it was due that night. So they may or may not receive it, but it's not binding on you until you accept it. So I just wanted to let you know so you wouldn't be surprised about that. Also, I've noticed that the State Association, they've got a map that shows counties that have convened committees on the opioid crisis, and I've noticed that we're not listed, and I just want everybody to know that last January of 16, the county did convene what we call the CARE Committee, Coalition for Addiction and Recovery and Education, and commissioners have appropriated $50,000 for hiring Amanda Flory. And, of course, we've got the HOPE project, so I'm going to try to make sure the association knows that, because it's a new initiative, that the commissioners here had already done that over a year and a half ago, so that's important. At this time, I think that'll be enough for us. Thank you.
All right, any questions divided on his report? Seeing none, we're on item 22. I'll call for a motion to go into closed session. Items to be discussed is economic development, matters of attorney-client privilege, and personnel. And I would ask the manager or the attorney if they expect any action to come after closed session.